Welcome back, guys. It's Eli, and on today's video we're talking about one of my favorite topics, which is how to make money as a real estate photographer. As you guys know, that's how I started out, that's how I grew my businesses, and that's how I'm now in a place where I can teach a course, have a YouTube channel, and do other things around the creative industry. It all started with real estate photography, and specifically we're talking about how to make $100K a year as a real estate photographer. And I chose that number because it's a goal for many people. Many people just want to break that six-figure a year number. And the cool thing is with real estate photography, it's very possible. I know that because it was for me very quickly, and it is for many of my students. And jumping straight into the video, there's really 5 things I think that you need to do in order to get to that 100K number as quickly as possible. And the number one most important thing you can do before you do anything is to know your local market. A lot of people look online and they watch YouTubers like myself and they think, okay, this guy charges this amount per house, that's exactly how much I need to charge. But the truth is, every market is different. I'm here in Fort Worth, Texas. What I can charge to shoot a house is a lot different than what you can charge if you're in the Bay Area of California or in New York City. There's different costs of living, different home prices, and different mentality when it comes to marketing real estate. So what I encourage you to do is look at your local market, see what's currently for sale, look at the listing prices, and that will help you start to determine a price you can charge for your services. Another great and really straightforward way to do this is to look at other real estate photographers in your area. And don't just look at the average real estate photographer, right? Look at the real estate photographers that are more successful, that maybe have teams that are actually able to get a lot of business at their pricing, because that'll tell you who just priced whatever they thought was right and who's actually knowing what the market's willing to pay and are having success at that number. And once you know your market, the second thing you need to do is build a product and build a workflow that suits the pricing your market will handle. Where a lot of people go wrong is they look online, they find somebody, they like their style, and they learn that you use flash and you do all this stuff and you make these great photos and you charge $700 a shoot. That's great if your market will handle that, but most markets aren't going to handle that. And that's why it's so important to start with how much your market is willing to pay. You know that if real estate agents are willing to pay $250 a shoot, you need to figure out how to make profit at $250 a shoot. And that's where so many people go wrong. They first start with, I'm gonna make this product. It's gonna be the best real estate photos around. And because they're so great, I'm gonna charge $600 a house, but the market won't handle that. So start, if you know your market's willing to pay $250 or $150 for 36 photos or for 40 photos, start with that and then say, okay, if I'm gonna be paid $150 for a shoot, how fast do I need to get that shoot done in order to make profit? And if you come up with a number of being 30 minutes, 45 minutes, for $150, you have to start to think, okay, if I have 45 minutes and they're willing to pay $150, how can I make profit at that number? And that will tell you what workflow you need to use. In some areas, it'll be more high-end. Maybe you'll even have to use flash. I don't really think that's the case ever now with how technology is. You don't really need to use flash, but maybe you need a more in-depth workflow. Maybe you need to spend more time on location and really get those amazing shots. Or maybe you're in a market where the agent doesn't want you to spend a lot of time. They're gonna sell the house quickly anyway, and they'd rather not wait around while you shoot photos. And they really only wanna pay $150, so you're gonna look towards more of an HDR workflow, something you can do quickly. Overall, don't make the mistake that so many photographers make, which is starting with what you wanna offer as a photographer. I understand that in other types of photography, weddings, portraits, you gotta make a portfolio that looks like the clients you wanna shoot for. But in real estate, if you're in an area where there's not $3 million houses, it doesn't matter how many $3 million houses you have in your portfolio, agents aren't gonna hire you to shoot those. So you have to look at this from like a more of an economic perspective and think, okay, this is the average house in my market and this is how much agents are willing to pay, and here's how I'm gonna get the business with all of those facts in mind. If you do that, you will set yourself up for success and you'll be so much further ahead of all the other photographers that went internally first. They didn't even care about what the clients wanted to pay. They said, what do I want? If you start with your clients and you price your services accordingly and you build your workflow accordingly, you will find success. And number 3, you have that all in place, right? So you know your market and you know that they're willing to pay this much per photo. And so you're starting your real estate photography business and you're starting to get clients. One thing that a lot of people often overlook at the start is getting good systems in place. What I mean by that is, what software are you using? What calendar system are you using? What invoicing are you using? And do they work well together? What happened in my business is when I first started, I would deliver the photos via email. A lot of agents hated Dropbox. I'm like, okay, I'll deliver via email. And then I would invoice them with Wix, and I would use another calendar app called TeamUp. And so every time an agent booked, I would have to put that in TeamUp, and then I'd have to take the address in TeamUp and send them an email delivering the photos. And then once I delivered the photos, I'd have to then take the address again and enter it a third time in our invoicing software. And it doesn't seem like a big deal up front, But when you start doing 100 shoots a month, 150 shoots a month, all of a sudden that extra 30 seconds really starts to add up. Unfortunately, there are a lot of software companies that build systems directly for real estate photographers. We use Full Frame at Norman & Young. There's systems like HD Photo Hub and REO and a bunch of other ones out there that are literally softwares built for real estate photographers, and they'll help you make your workflow a lot more efficient. And they have cool features like property websites and flyers and auto scheduling, where your clients can literally book, find an actual slot in your calendar that works from a time perspective, and book without ever talking to you, which is really cool. And so I'd encourage you to get those systems in place sooner than later, because it'll help your business as you grow not become inefficient the larger you get. You know, if you're doing 150 shoots a month, all of a sudden 5 minutes of project extra adds up to a day of wasted time. So get those systems in place as soon as possible. Now, number 4 in getting to $100,000 a year is to know your numbers. If you don't know how many shoots you need to do in order to make 100,000, it makes it a little more difficult to plan accordingly and make sure that you're on target to meet your goals. So this is where a little math can come in. Have it written down here. If you charge $200 a shoot on average, which is about what we charge, but that factors in, like, occasionally we do videos and aerial photos and virtual twilights, real twilights, and all that stuff. But anyway, anytime we go to a shoot, we average about $200 in revenue. In order for me to make $100,000 a year, if I was a solo shooter, I obviously now have a team, and so the numbers are a little different. But in order for me to make $100,000 a year as a solo photographer, charging $200, I would need to do about 2 shoots per day. And the way I got that number is by taking 100,000, dividing it by 200, which told me I needed to do approximately 500 shoots. And then I took those 500 shoots, and there's approximately 252 business days in a year, which tells me that I need to do about 1.9 shoots a day to make $100,000 a year. Now, the cool thing about this number, which is kind of independent of this video, but still important, is that 2 shoots a day with our workflow is really, really easy. 1 shoot takes us about 45 minutes. And so you can see that realistically, I can work much less than a 9 to 5 and still make about $100,000 a year. Now, obviously, some months are gonna be busier, like in peak season months, and some are gonna be slower, but on average, I'd have to do 2 shoots a day to make $100,000 a year. But if you live in somewhere, maybe a higher end market, like we mentioned earlier, the Bay Area of California, where you can charge more, but you're probably gonna have to spend longer on site, the math works out a little differently. If you're charging $500 a shoot, you really only need to do about 0.7 shoots a day on average. Now, you're probably gonna spend a little longer on these shoots. It's not gonna be a 45-minute shoot, it might be a 2-hour shoot. But either way, you can see that if you start with what your market's willing to pay and you work the numbers from there and you build your product from there, you spend about the same amount of time making the same amount of money. Now, obviously, there's other things to factor in. If you live in the Bay Area, you probably are gonna have to pay a little bit more for your lifestyle or for an equivalent lifestyle that I would have to pay in Fort Worth. And so you have to think about that and build that into your pricing. Maybe 100K here really needs to be 175K where you are to feel the same level of income and feel the same level of relative comfort with your lifestyle. And so that's important to know as well. Overall, I think one thing the creative industry and photographers really overlook a lot of the time is that number side of things. Most of us in this industry are artists, and we got into this because we like doing art for a living, whatever that is, photos, videos, graphic design, whatever your art is, you like doing it for a living. But a lot of people just forget about the numbers, or they don't pay attention to the numbers, or they think the numbers will work themselves out. And while that's the case a lot of times, I think that if you take a second to break down the numbers and you know your numbers, you're gonna be so far ahead of your competition and much more likely to achieve your goal, whether that's $100,000 a year, $200,000 a year, or scaling into a larger team and making a lot more than that. In order to do that most effectively, it's very important to know your numbers. So I encourage you to sit down and work out those numbers for your area. And that way you know how you're doing at any point in the year. And you know if you need to work harder to get more clients and go maybe sell some new clients at a new brokerage, you'll know because you'll know your numbers and know exactly where you are. And the 5th thing that you need to do to make 100K a year is have great customer service. And I want to talk about what that means a little bit, because it's one thing that I think so many people say they have but don't have. But if you do actually have it, your business will grow really fast. And my business is a testament to that. We rarely did any sales. I rarely went to brokerages and I rarely called agents, but we were able to grow to over 1,000 clients in a few years. And that's something that most businesses won't do, but we were able to do because we focused so heavily on providing a great customer experience. And when you have a great customer experience, customers are more likely to refer you. And what happens to a lot of business owners and people in this industry is they look at all their numbers and they maybe see advice on a YouTube video like this that tells them they need to look at the business side, and they start planning for what works best for them as a business. They'll start looking at stuff, for example, like what happens if a client cancels on me last minute? and they'll put like a $50 cancellation fee. They'll start thinking, okay, I could have booked that slot and the client canceled last minute, so I need to charge them $50. Or, if the weather is not great, they don't want to shoot because the work's not going to look as good. And so then they'll say, oh, you know what, I don't want to shoot today. It's my image if I take those photos and they're not going to look as great. That's really faulty thinking. What I encourage people to do is put their customers first every single time and build their business as if making every customer a raving fan is their number 1 priority. And what that looks like for us at my business, Norman & Young, is it first starts with hiring great people, but if you're a single photographer, you've either made that or you've not, right? So putting that aside, the first thing we always do is show up early, 5 minutes early every single time. And we had a saying, if you're not 5 minutes early, you're late. And so we'd always show up 5 minutes early, and we'd get compliments from agents who were like, man, you guys are like weirdly always on time, and I love it. So it starts with that, it's showing up 5 minutes early. And the second thing is we look presentable when we get there. We're not wearing, I had one photographer show up with me before I could offer aerials, and it was another company they had hired, and he showed up in like basketball shorts and flip-flops, and it just wasn't the most professional image. We were at a 750,000 or so house, and it doesn't look that great, right? So we always show up dressed well. And another thing we do is we're willing to spend 10 or 15 minutes tidying the house. That way the photos turn out the best they possibly can. A lot of agents will send a list to their sellers, but the sellers realistically don't get everything done, and often they forget that last little tidy up. Some photographers in our market especially will say, I can't touch that for insurance reasons. Come on, that's not true. They just want to get in and get out. So we spend that 10 minutes getting the house ready. And as far as photo delivery goes, we get them back as fast as we can to the agent. We have a 24-hour or less turnaround. And so you can see that we've built our business in a way that's very agent first. We could say that the house always needs to be ready so we can get in and get out, but that doesn't really do anything for the agent. It just helps us. And we found that the more we do for the agent and the more we build our business focused exactly on what agents would prefer, the bigger our business gets. Because if you think about it from your customer's shoes, your client's shoes, who do you want to do business with? Is someone who's built their business to exactly your needs and makes your life easier, or the guy who's built his business to benefit him? So think about that. Put some effort in there. Really think about how you can build your business to benefit your clients. Because if you do this, the clients will refer you. And I don't know about you, but I don't like having to sell people. I don't want to go to brokerages and have to try to convince them why they should use me. And so I prefer that my clients, the agents I work for, do the selling for me. And it's worked out very well. One agent tells another agent, and all of a sudden you have 2 agents. And then 2 agents each tell an agent, and you have 4 agents. And then 4 agents each tell an agent, you have 16. And you can see that if you have great customer service and you really build those raving fans for clients, that your client base will grow really quickly, much faster than you could ever grow it by nickel and diming people and having to sell your way into a ton more clients. So if you're someone who's wanting to start a real estate photography business, or really any business in the creative industry, I encourage you to go back through and watch this video and literally write down those 5 steps and go through them and do them in your business. If you do, I guarantee you that your business will be more successful than it would be without doing that. I'm not guaranteeing you success because obviously there's so many factors that determine that, but I guarantee you that doing these things will help you get closer to success. So I encourage you to go back and literally write them down and do them in your business. If you'd like to learn more about real estate photography and learn from me exactly the step-by-step how I built my business and get a behind-the-scenes look at my business, I put together a course called Real Estate Photographer Pro that's literally a business in a box. It's a step-by-step guide for how you can build a real estate photography company. It includes everything from the business side to exactly the process of how we shoot and edit our photos. It includes raw photos to work with and a ton more. If you're interested in that, there's a link below that'll take you to where you can learn a lot more about the course, see the exact curriculum list, and a ton more. Check it out. If you got anything out of this video, I'd really appreciate you hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. I have a lot more videos coming on topics exactly like this. My goal as a business, our organization's goal, is to help creatives make money doing what they love. So if that sounds of interest to you, hit the subscribe button. Comment below if you have any questions on this. We have a small channel still, and so I'm really there in the comments answering your guys' questions, so please feel free to do that. That's all for this video, guys. I'll see you in the next one.